mean, it's a big scratch. I don't think anybody thought Avis Grace could win, but she was going to be the speed of the race. So now it's a little bit more muddled. But, Travel Column has looked great all week. She was really aggressive in a good way this morning in her training. And I just like her tactical speed, and I think that's a big deal in a race like this. She's run well over the track. She's going to be ahead of some of her main competitors, and I think that tactical speed at the end of the day is going to put her in the right spot. And so I do like her. I don't love her in here, but I like her. Malath's the best looking horse I've seen, boys or girls all week, so I have her in second. I think she is the one to beat, and she's a major player. I think that's the right morning line favorite. So I think the race does go through her. And, the New York horses, they come out of the Gazelle, and it was kind of a little bit of a funky race. I have search results as an A, but I think Maracuja, if you go back and look at her race, it was a glacial pace that day, and she rallied in what was her two-turn debut, and she rallied off a 52nd half mile to get second and get into this race. And obviously the splits are going to be a lot more to her liking. She can save all the ground down inside. Kendrick Carmouche is kind of her end vote jockey, and I think she's a live long shot, at least for a piece. I don't know if she could win the race, but I think she can get a piece of it. But I do like Travel Column, and I'll use Travel Column and Malath as my aids in the race. And there's a few I'm against as well. You can kind of tell. Terrier, I just don't like her lack of early speed. I think the fact that she might have to pass 10 or 8 or 10 horses in a big field with traffic, and she's going to have to work out a trip. I'm just against that in this kind of race in a full field of 14. So I'll go with the tactical speed of Travel Column and then Malath right next to her.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm right with Brian. I did 10, 6, 4, and 3. Like Brian, I kind of made a little stand against Search Result, who's obviously undefeated for Chad Brown. Got to be bet, we'll just have to make a stand, and that's what you talk about in the Oaks and the Derby is, kind of the horses you like, and then the horses you choose everybody. But for me, I had Malathon on top, had every right to lose the Demoiselle, went and got Milfoy, and then last time in the Ashland, passed the Champagne, opened up by a couple lengths. You thought the race was over, and Malathon went and got her again. So I think she's really good. I know Brian said she's probably one of the best horses on the track, on the workouts. And going a mile and an eighth, I think is going to hit her square in the eyes, so she's going to be tough. Travel Column, I think, is a big player, especially on the speed. Like Brian said, been working out well. And of the two, the rivalry between Claria and Travel Column, I've definitely been on the Travel Column bandwagon up to this point, and I think it should only set up better for Travel Column in this spot. So when you're taking a look at the Oaks Derby double, I think those are the two horses I'm going to use. If you're looking in the verticals, for a horse, I think at a price, I think Crazy Beautiful might be interesting for Chemic Peak. Last time, closed into a race that was really paceless in the Gulfstream Oaks, was able to kick clear that day by 2 1/4, and I think she's been working out well. I know Chemic Peak's pretty high in her. I know if you're taking a look at body of work, maybe she doesn't impress people when you're taking a look overall, but I think she may be turning the corner and improving in here, and you're going to get Jose Ortiz aboard. And again, I think the connections are high, so if you're looking for a horse in the tries and supers, I thought Crazy Beautiful might be a horse to use, so 10, 6, 4, and 3.
I have a 10, 12, 3, and 6. I put Malath on top. Yeah, that was just a really nice performance in the Ashland. 4 for 4 now for Todd Pletcher, so she seems logical. I put Search Results in the second spot. I wasn't sure what to do with her off of that Gazelle, but she is 3 for 3, potent connections, gets hung outside, obviously, with the post position. That's not a positive either, but you have Iron Ortiz. That is a positive. So I put her in the thick of things. And then Clarier and Travel Column, I could have switched them up from the third and the fourth spots. I could have put them up higher in the mix, but I tilted towards Clarier just because I was on the OTB Live the afternoon. She won her first start, and I've kind of been on her bandwagon ever since. I think Travel Column maybe proved the best of the two last time at Fairground, in the Fairground Oaks, so I may be kind of fighting against the talent level here, but I'm going to put Clarier just slightly over Travel Column. For me, 10, 12, 3, and 6 in the Kentucky Oaks, the Friday feature. Again, one of many nice stakes on the card at Churchill Downs on Friday, the highlight of the Friday action. But we move on now to Saturday action. The highlight will be the Kentucky Derby. We'll hit that in a few minutes, but thought we would give you the pick 5 that leads into the Kentucky Derby and go over those stakes races, give you some ideas there. That pick 5, which ends in race 12 with the Kentucky Derby, starts in race number 8. It'll go off at about 2:45, the 8th race Saturday at Churchill Downs, the Pat Day Mile, Grade 2 event, $500,000 up for grabs. It is a one-turn mile. Mike, your thoughts in race 8 on Saturday?
I did 5, 4, 8, and 3. I'm going to give Prevalence another shot. I know disappointed last time in the Wood Memorial, finishing 6th, but the first 2 were good. Obviously, headline performances. People were jumped on the bandwagon off that maiden win, and it came back really strong. I mean, there were many horses. The 4th place finisher came back, break the maiden next time out. The second place horse, Stage Raiders, the unbelievable half-brother to Justify, who aired out at Keeneland. So there's many reasons to think that this horse did come out of live races last time out. Maybe just didn't want to go the mile and an 1/8 distance. And cutting back to the one-turn mile in here, the workouts have been pretty strong. And I thought the price was going to be fair and a horse to use in here. So I'll use Prevalence on top. And then I'll take the other 2 horses coming out of the Santa Anita Derby. I think that's a real live race, and we'll talk about that. We talk about the Kentucky Derby itself. But I thought Defunded was a horse that finished 4th last time in that Santa Anita Derby. I thought it was a good 4th. Had to go widest of the entire body of field that day. And then you take a look at the maiden breaker 2 starts back, where the horse gobbled him up. I was 8 back, kicked clear by 2 1/4. That race ended up being live as well. 2 horses out of that race came back to break their maiden next time out. So I think this is an interesting horse. Irad Ortiz Jr. is going to get aboard for Bob Baffert, and I like to cut back here to the 1 mile distance for this horse at 6-1. I'll put in the 2nd spot, and then Dream Shake in the 3rd spot. Last time out, finished 3rd, sort of ruled the rail like Rock Your World that day. Ended up finishing a decent 3rd. A horse that puts in a good effort each and every time, and one to use as well. So 5, 4, 8, and 3 in the Pat Day Mile.
I went 3, 8, 6, and 5. I put Jackie's Warrior on top. Just started the career with such brilliance, including the Hopeful and the Champagne, and then faltered a little bit in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. The comeback here was maybe a little lackluster. It was a sloppy track, however. It was a comeback effort, and it was also at a mile and a 16th. This horse may be just better at sprint or one-turn distances. I'm kind of counting on that a little bit. I'll look for a rebound for Jackie's Warrior. Dream Shake, I thought the 3rd place finish in the Santa Anita Derby was okay, but it also may just be, a lot of times we get to this point in the year, and it turns out, boy, the West Coast horses are actually better. If that's the case, then Dream Shake gets an improved mark, and will also flatter Rock Your World and Medina Spirit a little bit later on. Starring in My Dreams in the 3rd spot for me. I put Prevalence in the 4th spot. I wasn't quite sure what to do, but off of those first 2 starts, I just didn't want to leave Prevalence out of the mix. But for me, 3, 8, 6, and 5. And Brian, I can't wait. You're looking to start off your pick 5 in a big way in the Pat Day Mile.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really like this race, Seth and Mike, so this was my one real funky throw it at the wall and maybe it'll stick. Sitting on Go, the last time he ran one turn was at Churchill Downs, over the track, over the distance, and it was his best race ever in his 2nd career start. He might be off form, he might not be very good, but I do think he'll get some pace to run into. Maybe cutting back to one turn with all that foundation is going to help him too. So I'm going to take a shot at what should be a pretty big price. We've seen this race in the past blow up the board. Duck Hunt or something that a few years ago in a crazy number. So it can happen. I'm hoping for a meltdown. I do think there's enough pace in here to set it up from off the pace. Now the 2 more likely runners are Dream Shake and Defunded. So I have them 2nd and 3rd for all the reasons you guys alluded to. The Santa Anita Derby, the cutback, Dream Shake. You look at his debut as only 1-turn start. It was a really top effort. Then he kind of got thrown into the deep end of the pool, which is what happens with these 3-year-olds. You've got to see where they fit. And he didn't run poorly at all. Just maybe it was too much too soon. The cutback, 1 turn, he should settle just a little bit. And I do think he's the horse to beat in here. And then Defunded, Bob Baffert, 42% blinkers off. It's not a giant sample, but it's a big number. Irad is here. He's another horse that will fit what I think is the race flow, and that's some hitting up front. Look for this in that last furlong. This flat 1-turn mile is going to be pretty dicey for some of these speed horses. Certainly Jackie's Warrior is maybe the speed of the speed, but I don't think it's going to be that easy for him, and I think he's going to have pressure the entire way to his outside. I will say this, the track has been very, very speedy the first 2 days. It's been hard to pass horses, so take that into account, but I don't know, he just hasn't really, I know there were 2 turn races, but he hasn't really run that well to me in his last 2 starts, so I think it's just a little too easy to say, oh, he's back to 1 turn, he's going to win. I think it's a little too easy to do that at a short number. I'll try to beat him. So I'm going to try to blow this thing up with sitting on Bell.
Second leg of the pick 5 that ends with the Kentucky Derby. Race number 9 at Churchill Downs, the American Turf Grade 2 event. $500,000 up for grabs, mile and a 16th. I went 4, 13, 5, and 2. I put Annex on top, undefeated. I'm a buyer's guy, and the buyer in the last race didn't thrill me, but I had to work to get it and got the win and is still undefeated. So I'm going to look at this one as being a little battle-tested, and with the number 2 back, I think that fits nicely with this group. And being undefeated, as they say, for Belmont, I'll put Annex on top. Second slot, I will go out to Scarlet Sky, Shug McGahee runner that won the Transylvania at Keeneland in the last start in fine fashion, so seems to be in very good form right now. Joel Rosario was on board in that Keeneland victory, back on board again Saturday. Du Jour goes out for Bob Baffert. 3 turf starts in 4 career starts. The turf starts have been okay, including the last 2. The Maiden Breaker 2 back and the optional claimer win last time. Nice improving numbers in all 4 starts so far. So that one seems like a player. And Win From Within, another Todd Pletcher runner, coming in good form, particularly since having moved to the turf 2 races back. Luis Saez on board. So for me, 4, 13, 5, and 2. Brian, your thoughts on the American turf?
I'm all outside, Seth. Mike, 14, 13, 4, and 3. I think I said I'm all outside, and that's because I think there's a lot of speed inside. Excellent timing. Win From Win will certainly be going. Du Jour's not letting anybody get too far away early. And I think this turf course, whether they tell you it's firm or not, come Friday afternoon or Saturday, I think it'll still have some give to it. I think maybe some of these horses can get a little weary late. So I went outside to Palazzi. If you like Scarlet Sky, you got to like Palazzi a little bit too. They were right there together last time. It's a race, Seth and Mike, where, Seth, you mentioned the buyers, and everybody's really right in the same boat. So I want to look for some value. I want a horse that can pass horses late. I don't think the post is that detrimental to a horse like Palazzi, who's run well everywhere he's gone. And he's a closer from the back, so I don't think it's as bad as if he was a horse that wants to lay 4th or 5th, and he's going to be strung out very wide. Put him on top. I think certainly Scarlet Sky is a major player. He just beat Palazzi last time. He's a little more tactical as well. I think that's a big deal. Annex has done nothing wrong, and he's run twice now without laces. We've got to mention this before we get too deep. Some of these horses on this card have been doing nothing but running on Lasix. And now they're going to go off Lasix on Saturday, and it puts a real guessing game into the equation. So I really tilted towards horses that at least have shown they can run well without Lasix. So Annex has done it. He regressed a little bit last time. I think he's probably, at the end of the day, the most likely winner, but his margin for error is just so slim. And he's never faster than anybody else, and he's going to be an underlay at 3 to 1 or so. So, I think he's a definite must-use A. I just don't want to pick him on top. Chestnut Stream is interesting, too, because it's kind of weird. He added Lasix last time. He seemed like he regressed a little bit, at least on figures. You look at the run 2 back at Gulfstream when he came from back out of it. I think he's a player in here, too. He's going to save a lot of the ground, so I'm going to use him, too. But the numbers for me are 14, 13, 4.
Mike?
Yeah, I had 13, 2, 4, and 12. I agree with a lot of what you guys said. Scarlet Sky last time had 0 pace to run into, still was able to get up by half length. And I'm a big replay guy. You go back and watch the Palm Beach where Annex got up to win by a head against Scarlet Sky. You can make a strong case that at the point where Annex on the far turn had an outside trip and didn't get stopped, Scarlet Sky had to go between horses, and it kind of cost that head margin and victory. So I think Scarlet Sky is real live in here. I think you're going to hold at 4-1 too, and that morning line's going to hold in here. So underneath the 2, it does look scary. Like you said, Brian said, there's a lot of speed in here, but this horse last time out ran a hole in the wind down at Tampa. If this horse gets loose, it's going to be very scary. Ultimately, we'll see how it plays out. Annex in the 3rd spot. Like you said, nothing that you can say bad about the horse. I agree with Brian that the margin for error is very slim. And is going to be bet down, I think, heavily, being undefeated 3 for 3. And then I thought the long shot that you may want to use in here is Lucky Law. Last time out, did finish 4th, only beating a length to Annex, and had a trouble trip. Hit the gate at the start, down the stretch, got brushed, and it was squeezed for some room. I think this horse can improve, and if the pace does set up to be really fast, Lucky Law will be a horse to be charging late. So 13, 2, 4, and 12 for me in the 9th.
Race number 10 on Saturday is the Churchill Downs, a Grade 1 event, $500,000 up for grabs. They're going to travel 7 furlongs. Brian, your thoughts?
This is my best bet of the day, Seth. Mind Control, 2 over the 5-9. He had no chance last time in the Carter, and I thought he ran really, really well to be second. Mischievous Alex, arguably the best, but one of the best sprinters in the country, and he had things his own way that day, and Mind Control behind a slow pace was kind of 4th in a 5-horse field and rallied nicely to be second. Well behind the winner, but he rallied nicely to be second. He took off late 6 that day too, and he still fired a big shot. Second off the layoff. He really likes 7 furlongs. He's a multiple Grade 1 winner at 7 furlongs. And, there's plenty of speed in this race, but it's not like pure sprint, hellacious kind of pace. And I think that bodes well for Mind Control because I think he'll be close enough to be just off the leaders while getting first run on the closers, even the stalkers maybe. And he, like I said, he's my best bet of the day. Tap It to Win. I was impressed with his comeback. He's another horse that can be close but yet still off the pace. I would think he can move forward off that comeback. He's clearly going to have to. He's going to have to show he's a Grade 1 kind of sprinter. But I thought it was a very, very encouraging comeback. So I'll put him underneath. I've got no knocks on Whitmore, but he's 1 for 5 at Churchill. He's 1 for 5 at 7 furlongs. We know how much he loves Oaklawn Park. He doesn't really win a lot. I mean, he won the Breeders' Cup Sprint. It was his only win in his last 6 starts. And that was just a really weird race. Not literally no other horse ran that day, and he picked the race of his life. Kudos to him. He's running the race 4 years in a row, but he's a fan favorite. He will be overbet. He's another horse with very, very little margin for error, and Whitmore away from Oaklawn Park isn't usually the same Whitmore, so I'm a little against him. I do think you need to play him. If you're playing this pick 5 and pick 4, he's a B to me, but I don't want to get too sold on Whitmore. I'm against him a little bit. 2 over the 5-9, like I said, my play of the day.
Mike? I had it 5, 12, 4, and 9. I agree with Brian. I thought Whitmore and even Flagstaff were vulnerable favorites in here. Tap It to Win, like you said, off a little bit of a freshening. Seasonal debut was really sharp against Statebreds down in Tampa. Now stretching out to 7 furlongs. You had Mark Cassian last week. He was very high in this horse. If you get even half the price of 8-1, 4 or 5-1 in this spot, I think he's very live and is going to sit a good trip in here. I thought Endorse was a little interesting at 12-1 on the morning line, the outside horse, the number 12 in here. Last time out finished second, but if you take a look at the early part of 2020, this horse was really good. Finished second, beating a half-length to Code of Honor and the Westchester down at Belmont. Got a triple-digit buyer that day. Yes, the form tailed off later on in the season, but last time out had a little bit of a troubled trip. Ultimately finished second to the Fat Man, but I think there's versatility here. They've been having this horse a little bit more forwardly placed than earlier on in the career. If they revert back and there's any pace that shapes up in here, I think Endorse may be interesting. There's a little bit of a player in here at 12-1, and then the 4 and the 9. Like you said, you have to protect with Flagstaff and Whitmore, but for me, I would try to take a stand with some long shots in here, 5, 12, 4, and 9.
Yeah, and I went 9, 5, 12, and 4. I put the veteran on top, but I agree with everything Brian said. And so I kind of defaulted because I say I am a buyer's guy. and he's got all those triple-digit buyers on the page, but I'm not super convinced on him, and the price might be a little too short, and he is a little bit different at Oaklawn. I agree with all of that. As I say, I kind of defaulted there. But tap it to win if the price holds up, as Mike said, even if you get 4 or 5 to 1. Again, Mark Cassidy was on with me last Saturday, and he really liked the race down at Tampa and said he's got a nice little 4-year-old, he thinks, this year. So I put that one underneath, and that may be an alternative to Whitmore. I agree with Mike. Endorsed on the outside, I think, could be an alternative to Whitmore. The Bill Mott trainee is looking at a 12 to 1 morning line, and Joel Rosario on board, and I think there's enough talent there, and enough talent also moving in the right direction, maybe primed for better, to take a little pop with that one. Flagstaff down in the 4th spot. But for me, in the Churchill Downs, race number 10, 9, 5, 12, and 4. Race number 11 is the Turf Classic Grade 1 event. $1 million up for grabs, a mile and an eighth. Mike, your thoughts in the Turf Classic?
I had 7, 3, 4, and 5, and this is strictly based on the fact that there really is no speed in here whatsoever. I think smooth like straight. Last time out, I was sitting just off the pace, ended up getting beat a neck to hit the road. Yes, hit the road. Did bounce last time down at Keeneland. But this horse has been in every race, has been in grade 1 and grade 2 races, the last 6 or 7 races, and been there each and every time. Tactically, this is the way that I'm playing the race. The fact that this horse is going to be on the front end, I think it's going to be a paceless race, maybe able to open up on them at the top of the stretch and have enough late to get the job done under Umberto Rispoli. The 3 underneath Colonel Lamb, he's going to take a lot of money in here, especially off the Pegasus Turf Invitational win last time out down at Fairgrounds. It was a workmanlike performance. Thought it was a heads-up ride by Irad in a race that didn't have any pace. He was able to be a little bit more forwardly placed than he's been in the past. He's clearly the horse to beat, been in razor-sharp form, have to use him as well. And then the 4 in the 3rd spot, Ivar, last time out finished 4th in the Breeders' Cup Mile. So yes, is coming off a little bit of a layoff. You're going to see that with a lot of horses in here as they do make their seasonal debut. The triple-digit buyers of recent kind of hits you as far as, especially if you're a buyer's player and you focus on that. But I think he may be interesting at 5 to 1 on the morning line. I had 7, 3, 4, and 5, strictly based on the way the pace is going to develop in here.
I have it 2, 4, 9, and 3. And I'm going to take a little pop with Count again. 10 to 1 on the morning line, coming out a nice close-up closing finish in the Frank Kilroe Mile last time. And I just pulled up the chart while we were talking because I did want to mention in that Kilroe, Casa Creed finished 6th in there and came back to win the stake at Belmont last weekend and did it in pretty fine fashion with a 99 buyer, Lee Einsiedler's Casa Creed. So that maybe flatters the runners a little further up in the finishing positions in the Kilroe Mile. But I think the Phil D'Amato runner coming out of that essentially seasonal debut. I mean, had a race back on January 2nd, but then laid off until the March 6th Kilroe. I think that sets the horse up very nicely for the Turf Classic. I like that they elected to come out of that one and ship cross country and take the shot. Luis Saez elects to ride. I think that's a big bonus as well, so I'll hope the price holds up and I'll go in that direction. Ivar in the 2nd spot hasn't been seen since the Breeders' Mile last fall, ran 4th in there, but before that was on a nice string of a couple of wins and a 3rd and 3 starts just before that. Has run pretty strongly really in all of the North American starts. Normally I take a wait and see attitude with these South American runners, but Ivar has proven to be very talented along those lines. And Mark Cassidy has Ride a Comet coming out of a 2nd place finish most recently behind Raging Bull, who ran a great race in the Maker's Mark Mile. So I think Ride a Comet is in good form. I put Colonel Liam down in the 4th spot. I just have not been convinced on that horse at all, and he's only won 5 out of 7 times. So he may beat me again, and I couldn't leave him totally out, but I put him at the bottom of my mix. I have it 2, 4, 9, and 3 in the Turf Classic. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, Mike said some key things, and he's 100% dead on point. No speed whatsoever, and a lot of very good horses coming off extended layoffs. So this is an awesome race. It's the race of the day. I have it 1, 3, 4, 6, a little bit of a stab. I'm worried that Smooth Like Straight will not see it out. And so if he comes unglued a little bit late, I think Master of Foxhounds, I think Ivar, I think Colonel Liam will be in the right spot, ready to take over. And Master of Foxhound's got plenty of foundation from going longer. Listen, this is a legitimate, true Grade 1 race. He might not be this kind of horse, but at 10, 12, 15 to 1, I'll find out with the best finisher we have, Joel Rosario. He's going to save all the ground. He fits on figures. Third start of the year, third start of the form cycle. He's going up. I'll take a shot at a big number with Master of Foxhounds. I like that you guys are kind of sort of against Colonel Liam, because I am too. And, you know, yay for winning the Pegasus World Cup turf. This is like 9 times the race as that. I mean, Largent, his stablemate, would be 40 to 1 in this field. 2 Emmys, who got a great ride at Fairgrounds under James Graham, is like a marginal listed stakes horse. So yes, Colonel Liam has done it the right way, and he's done it in pretty fast time. It's acid test time in here, and he's got to step up again. And this is not a group that he's going to look over and they're going to wet their pants. This is this is an awesome duel of a great race, and he's going to have to earn it, and he's going to be a short price, he's going to be an underlaid price, and he's going to have to answer the bell again. So I'm just against him on top. I think you have to use him as an A, but I just didn't want to pick him on top. Can Ivar get 9 furlongs? I don't know, but I'll tell you what, if he can, as I think Mike said it, with all those triple digits, or you said it, Seth, I mean, here's an unbelievable horse that just fires every time. If he can get the 9, he's very, very right there on the line with these. I just worry off the bench. He's never tried this far. He's been a miler so far. It's a big, big ask for Ivar. But boy, he fits nicely as well. And then Digital Age won this race last year for Chad. He's 2 for 2 over the course. I don't know if he's going to get the 47 flat he got last year, and that helped him inhale the field. This is a much better race, and it will not go that quickly. So I think Digital Age is a little bit against it. 1, 3, 4, 6 in an absolute corker of a turf classic.
All right, we move on to the highlight on Saturday. It'll go off at just a little before 7 o'clock. The 12th race at Churchill, the Kentucky Derby Grade 1 event, $3 million up for grabs with the 3-year-olds going 1.25 miles. And why don't we kind of go through the whole field, horse by horse, but let's do it in chunks of 5. We'll have 4 chunks of 5 that each of us will kind of move through. And we can each make comments on all 20 horses, but we'll do it in the chunks of 5, as I say. So the first chunk will be number 1 through number 5. I'll start things off and just kind of go through those 5, and then I'll send it over to you guys to each take a look at those 5 as well. But of the first 5, Known Agenda, I have him down at the bottom of my mix. I thought it was a nice win in the Florida Derby. I think he becomes a serious player for Todd Pletcher, and of the Pletcher horses, he's the most intriguing to me. I can make it quick in the next couple. Like the King, coming out of the win in the Jeff Ruby, I thought Sainthood was the best horse in that race, had some trouble for Todd Pletcher. So if I was going to take a horse from that race, it would be Sainthood. I'm not that thrilled with Like the King coming out of the synthetic races. His own lone dirt race wasn't much. He may be something, but I'm not pulling the trigger on Saturday. Brooklyn Strong, I liked the horse last year. I think he has the potential to be a really nice New York bred. He won the Remsen, but then they had some setbacks, and it just seemed like, boy, you're behind the 8 ball with the calendar. And so the Wood, I thought, was a tall ask. I think this is even taller, so I'm against Brooklyn Strong. Keep me in mind, the last couple of starts weren't much. I won't pull the trigger there. As I said, Sainthood, lightly raced, and I thought he was best in the Jeff Ruby. I took a little pop at him there at 10 to 1. I wouldn't mind, if somebody wanted to take a flyer there, but he doesn't make my mix. But I wouldn't argue somebody at, if the 50 to 1 price holds up, I could make a little bit of a case for that. But again, being lightly raced, it's probably a tall ask. So of the first 1 through 5 for me, Known Agenda is a little bit interesting in that mix. Brian, you go 1 through 5.
Yeah, I mean, Known Agenda's, I would think, the only one you can look at. He got just brutalized by the rail. Now, the rail's not, in theory, as bad as it once was. If you've happened to see, they've run 2 races already. They did it last September with the now extended 20-horse starting gate. So whereas in years past, where if you broke from the rail, you'd literally run into the clubhouse, you'd run into the rail. It's not as bad. With that being said, no agenda has to go in some way, shape, or form, or run the risk of really, really getting shuffled back. He is tactical, so that helps, but he's going to have to be used early. And, he was good in the Florida Derby. I don't think anybody can question that, but the Florida 3-year-olds this year are not good at all. That's probably being kind. Then you factor in the rail. He'll probably be higher than 6-1 for a few different reasons. You're probably I would think you might eke out 10 or 12-1 on him. And then you have to figure out if that's good value or not, if he's for you or not. He's not for me. He never was. And then you break from the one hole, and now you're certainly not for me. But, he's got these Pletcher and, always dreaming parlayed the Florida Derby into the Kentucky Derby. So, I wouldn't fall over if he won, but he's definitely not for me. Anyone else, if nothing else, Like the King has a pedigree for dirt. He's by Palace Malice. We know he won the Belmont. Palace Malice actually ran a really good race in the Kentucky Derby back then. And he's a different horse now than the one he was at 2 that was, okay on dirt, but not very good. So that's a plus. Wesley Ward's winning everything. Still tough to endorse. Seth mentioned Brooklyn Strong. He's a nice, solid horse, but let's watch him in the Albany this summer at Saratoga. Keep me in mind, just doesn't look very good. And Sainthood is, you're going to get Pletcher at a big price. Danza ran 3rd in this race at a big number. He is lightly raised. He does have a big pedigree, at least on the bottom for this trip, but seems very, very slow. I will say this, just because I've been here for now over a week. No Agenda has looked very good in the morning. He's aggressive in his gallops in a good way, puts a lot into him. He's been very, very busy in the mornings. He's been one of the better lookers, at least on the track, but boy, it's a big, big ask for him down there.
Mike, you're 1 through 5.
Yeah, I mean, the logical no agenda. Like Brian said, there's 2 ways to either look at it. You have to sort of send and go with the speedsters, and then hope that you hit that gap where when you're pulling back, there's enough clear space where you're not getting bumped into. That's a possibility. Or the other option is to just completely fall back, like you did in the Sam F. Davis down at Tampa. I don't think that's the number one option. I think the first would obviously be the way that they'll probably end up playing it in here. I think of the 50-1 shots, if you're watching and you're looking for a big price, maybe the only race you bet is the Kentucky Derby. I think, keep me in mind, maybe the horse you want of the 50-1s, 2 through 5 here, because there's some pros that you can take a look at. Yes, the 2021 races have not been good, but last year he had a couple good races at Churchill, including a victory. Of 2 races, he finished 1st and 2nd. The blinkers are going to come off. And I think in the workout that you saw on April 23rd, first of 108, clearly he has to take a massive step forward to even be considered at all. But again, when you're just taking a look at this subset of the Kentucky Derby, entries in here, 2 through 5, I think maybe he may be the one you want to use at a big price of 50-1.
All right, let's go to 6 through 10. And Brian, I'll let you kick it off with your thoughts on those 5.
Well, there's some meat on the bone in here, right, for 6 through 10. Obesos was a question mark going 2 turns. He ran in place in the Risen Star. The Foleys weren't sure. They ran him back in the Louisiana Derby, and he's the one horse in that race, because Hot Rod Charlie and Midnight Bourbon ran 1-2 around the track together. Obesos is the one horse in the race that was closing, galloped out nicely. Not much to look at, but he's been training well. He's been very active in the mornings. He's by a Derby winner in Orb, so he's supposed to get this trip, and he will be running on in a race where, we haven't really talked about the pace, but it should be honest, I think, and we'll get to some of the horses that will make it honest. But a horse like Obesos, the problem with Obesos is a problem with a few more we're going to talk about. You're going to have to pass 14, 15 horses. That's not a path to Kentucky Derby success. It's really not. You want tactical speed. You want to be in position entering the far turn, as opposed to picking your way, Jerry Bailey and Grindstone. That doesn't happen. So Obesos, to me, is a kicker. He's a maybe he could get a commanding curve, Golden Soul second. I can't possibly see him win. Our friends Terry and Tommy in the West Point group bought into this horse, so that's easy to root for. Mandaloon, listen, nobody is higher on Mandaloon than me. He was dreadful last time. I can't see him winning this race. He's looked awesome in the morning. He's the best looking horse before Hot Rod Charlie got here to me. But he always looks good. If he runs back to his risen star, I think he can win this race. But I also think it's just really implausible to think you can run 6 feet in almost 12 lengths 6 weeks ago and now all of a sudden turn it around and run the race of your life. It's not a good Derby. I don't think anybody thinks it is. So I think he can get a piece of it. But if we're strictly talking about winning the Kentucky Derby, it's too much to ask for me off such a total no-show, and we don't really know why. And Brad Cox doesn't know why. I mean, I'm against him on top. My goodness, I'd love to see him win for personal reasons, but I don't think he can. Medina Spirits looked really good all week, but he's not a Derby winner to me. He's a nice horse for Bob Baffert. He's a horse that I do think will get involved early under John Velasquez. He had a little bit of a tricky start in the Santa Anita Derby, and I think that took him away from pressing a little bit. I don't think he would have gotten to Rock Hard World early, but he is a horse with a lot of speed. He's trained aggressively here. He's a sleek-looking horse. He's a mid-pack finisher, but I do think he's got enough speed to be involved early. Hot Rod Charlie is not the horse I saw at Fairgrounds this winter. He's a bigger, stronger, tougher version. He's an absolute beast in the few days I've seen him. He got away from the pony today. He galloped very aggressively. I thought he looked great. I talked to Doug O'Neill really briefly, and he's like, yeah, he's put on weight. He's bigger. You can just see it. And he just, to me, he's coming into this race in great fashion. I am not the guy to be like, hey, workouts are all this and that. I watched him, and his workout was really, really impressive. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a Tisnow. I'm not saying he's going to be anything like Tisnow, but he's just going to throw 12s at you and gallop you right into the ground. And I think that's the kind of trip he might pull in here outside of Rock Your World, outside of Midnight Bourbon, and he's just going to gallop you into the ground. Midnight Bourbon looks great, too. He's really filled out nicely from this winter, and he's danced every dance for Steve Asmussen. He's trained very well in the morning. The one thing nobody's talking about, and I know it's illegal to criticize Mike Smith, but the guy loves to be involved in a hot pace. And I think the fact that he's on Midnight Bourbon, I really feel strongly that Midnight Bourbon is going in this race. Whether that means he's in front of Rock Your World, I don't know. And I overheard John Sadler today say he doesn't have to have the lead with Rock Your World. I really feel strongly that Midnight Bourbon is going to be aggressive early under Mike Smith, and he's going to be involved. And I think that's going to mix the pace up a little bit. So I think he's a solid horse. I don't think he's a Derby winner. Those are 5 good ones for you guys to talk about, right?
Yeah, Mike, 6 through 10.
Yeah, I mean, of that subset, I thought Mandaloon, because I know, Brian, you've been very high on him. Seth has as well. Like you said, the only real head scratcher is that race in the Louisiana Derby. If you look past that, he's right there. He's been working out tremendous. I think he's the horse of that subset you want to use. I'm actually intrigued now a little bit more with Hot Rod Charlie based on what Brian said and the way he looks down there. I didn't have him in my top 4, but I did have him just outside in my 5-6 range. Midnight Bourbon, he's been honest as can be. And that's pretty much what you can say about a lot of these horses, is you sort of know at this point what they are and who they are. You know, it really, when you're looking at this race, is of the horses and how they run and their best race, who actually has the best race. And for me, it potentially could be Midnight Bourbon of this little subset here. So it's an interesting group of horses. I know Bezos, a little horse that I liked last time out in the Louisiana Derby, finished a solid 3rd. He may be able to improve as well. So quite an interesting group right there.
Yeah, of this 5, there are 2 I'm going to use, and there are 3 I want to use. No, Bezos is one of those that I want to use because I thought that was a nice performance in the Louisiana Derby last time. Again, the Kentucky HBPA was doing some nice interviews on the backstretch and posting them on YouTube over the past week or so. One of those with Greg Foley after an Obesos workout, and he seemed very high on the horse in the workout, and I just like that. So I think Obesos is going to, at the very least, pick up some pieces, perhaps, at a little bit of a price. Mandaloon, I'm just going to kind of draw a line to the Louisiana Derby. Yeah, historically, in recent years, certainly you don't want a horse coming off a 6th place finish, but I do think this may be the kind of field where that's going to work if the horse lives up to what we saw coming into the Louisiana Derby, because I thought the horse was primed for a good effort. So it was inexplicable. So I am going to kind of draw a line through that and look for a rebound off the reports that the horse has been working well leading into the Derby. Medina Spirit, again, a horse I would like to use. It's Bob Baffert. I will say on the Daily Report podcast, I pulled up one of those HBPA interviews from Tuesday with Bob Baffert. I didn't think he sounded that enthusiastic about the horse, frankly, but he certainly comes in with a very solid record out there in Southern California, finishing second to Rock Your World, finishing second to Life is Good. Hot Rod Charlie just has not gotten a lot of conversation over the past 2 or 3 weeks, but that Louisiana Derby win was very good. Again, another one I would like to use, don't have in my mix. I will put somewhere at the bottom of the mix Midnight Bourbon, however, who I think comes in good form off the Fairground Series for Steve Asmussen, so I can see that one in the mix as well. And I agree, Brian, with what you said. Mike Smith, if he thinks he has the horse, he's aggressive. And I kind of like that about him, but it can work against you. We'll see how it works on Saturday, but I agree. I would think Midnight Bourbon will be squarely in the thick of things. All right, let's take a look. Go ahead.
Guys, quickly on Midnight Bourbon, because you were talking about him. He's been a little bit of a terror, too. I'm sure everybody saw him get loose the other day and run around, but he's schooled in the paddock today, and Steve Asmussen, actually, he's the one that had him in the paddock, and he tried to bolt a few times, and Steve had his hands full trying to keep him controlled. So, he factor that into the mix. We haven't mentioned that a lot of these horses, really mostly all of these horses, are now going to see people for the first time. I know some of these horses ran in the Breeders' Cup or on Breeders' Cup weekend last year. This is a whole different kettle of fish on Saturday, with upwards of maybe 60, who knows how many thousand people will be here. It's kind of nobody really knows, but if you see some of these horses getting a little spooky, and then you factor that in on Saturday, could be a whole different ball game here with who's going to handle it when they play, when the crowd goes wild. So it's just something to keep an eye on if you're watching TV or before you're firing your bets.
Yeah, great point. All right, let's take a look at 11 through 15. Mike, take it away.
Yeah, Dynamic won the 11 at 20-1. Did take 4 starts to break the maiden. Last time out, though, made a huge increase as far as Briars goes, getting 89, finishing second, beating ahead to Bourbonic. A lot of people probably thought he had it at mid-stretch. He's been working out well. I didn't have him in my mix, but I would understand of the 4 Pletchers that are in this race. He, to me, is the dangerous one of the 4 that are in there for Todd Pletcher. So he might be interesting for some people as a live long shot. Helium, the 12, at 50-1, undefeated. You have to mention that. The first 2 up at Woodbine over the synthetic. The dirt debut in the Tampa Bay Derby got up. I was actually passed by Hidden Stash and sort of resurged to get the job done. If you're looking for a huge price, he may be one you want to use. And again, the undefeated mark may be something that people want to take a look at. Hidden Stash, the 13, another big price in here at 50-1 last time out in the Bluegrass, finished 4th, was able to pick up the pieces with Essential Quality and Highly Motivated, duking it out down the stretch. He's got an okay body of work, obviously has to improve, especially buyers-wise. Hasn't hit anything over 83. And then Essential Quality, the 14, is going to be your favorite for the Kentucky Derby. Undefeated, 5 for 5 last time out. I think showed an interesting just sort of gutsy effort. He had been able to kick clear in all his races. About mid-stretch, you didn't think he was going to go past Highly Motivated, and we're actually showing the race right here. where they set, honest enough fractions. They really weren't going that fast, so you kind of expected those two to have a match race down the stretch. But for him to sort of get past and sort of was opening up at the end, you could say he's definitely the horse you want to use going the mile and a quarter. I just think ultimately people are going to try to take a look elsewhere based on the price, 2-1 on the morning line, but clearly is a deserved favorite going into this Derby. And then Rock Your World, the number 15 in here at 5-1. I really like his races. I know a lot of people are knocking that he debuted on the turf. He had 2 starts and then went into the Santa Anita Derby. That was the goal all along. They wanted to sort of bypass the youngster Bob Baffert horses. They knew they had a horse that was good on dual surfaces. He was extremely good in his maiden race on the turf. Yes, it was 6 furlongs. Then he stretched out to a mile, and you could still see that the youth was there because he's a horse that, to me, needed that experience. And then they tried their shot in the Santa Anita Derby, and he went quick early. You thought maybe he was going to get a leg weary down the stretch, but he was able to open up against Medina Spirit, against Dream Shake. I like that performance. Yes, it got 100 buyer. I think he can improve off that effort. I like him a lot on Saturday. And, of this group, obviously it gets a little bit more interesting talking about 14, 15, but you do have those long shots that you can take a look at. So, Seth, I'll sort of tee you up right now.
11 Dynamic One finished second in the Wood Memorial at 15-1 off the Maiden Breaker. I wouldn't argue against anybody taking up a shot here. It's Todd Pletcher with a live horse and Jose Ortiz on board. It's one of those I'd be happy to put in my mix. I just thought others were a little more intriguing. Helium, same situation, 3 for 3. Again, I had Mark Cassidy on last week on Racing Across America, and I said, you're taking a horse to the Derby off running the Tampa Bay Derby back on March 6th. Was that the game plan? He said, yeah, that was pretty much the game plan. The seasonal debut was off a layup. That was his first try on dirt, and he was successful. And he noted that win over Hidden Stash, he hadn't had a win like that in his entire career, where the horse got passed like that and then got gutsy and came back on. So Helium to me is really intriguing at a big price. Hidden Stash, the same thing. I like the performance in the Tampa Bay Derby where he had the duel and came on and just Helium got the best of him. A little bit more disappointing in the Bluegrass, but hey, I got to put a couple of bucks on Hidden Stash because I'm a Syracuse graduate, and he's owned in part by Jim Boeheim. So on the Syracuse Orangeman angle, I'll have a couple of dollars on Hidden Stash. Essential Quality, it was going to be interesting to see what the horse was going to go off at, what the betting public would do, because I think as an undefeated champion, I think a lot of professional handicappers and just on Twitter, it seems like people are looking for other opportunities. I did. We'll see that when I put my picks up. But he's been the most consistent in a Derby prep season that really hasn't had much consistency. Horses would step up, show some real talent, and then not validate it. And then somebody else would step up. But Essential Quality, 5 for 5, the nice 2 wins this year in the Southwest and the Bluegrass. I have them right in the mix, but I'm going to take a little shot against on the top end. But as I say, it was going to be interesting to see where the betting public went off the 2-1 morning line. But for folks who haven't read, Mattress Mac McInvale has pledged $4 million on a win bet on Essential Quality, which again, given the pool, but it will change things up, you would think, at least a little bit for odds on Essential Quality with Mattress Mac taking his swing there. So that is going to juggle things up from the interesting fact that, as I say, I wanted to see where the betting public was going to wind up there, but he's clearly going to be a choice now and maybe a little shorter than was anticipated. Rock Your World, I have that horse also in my mix with only 3 starts and only 1 on dirt. Historically, I would have taken a stand against, but in this particular year, this horse may be a special horse, and being special may just be good enough to be right in the conversation and in the thick of things with the 2020 Derby field. So he's in my mix as well. And as I say, I'll parse them out a little bit later on. But that takes me 11 through 15. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, the wood fell apart. It was a bad race. So I can't think Dynamic won. Even if he improves, I can't think it matters. So I'm against him. Helium has really looked good. He's been galloping aggressively, but big ask. Lightly raced. Only one start this year. Excuse me. He is game, as Seth alluded to. But no, he's not for me. Hidden Stash is he couldn't beat Helium. He's not for me. But now we get to the two, Essential Quality and Rock Your World. And I'm glad you mentioned the Mattress Mac thing, Seth, because it's very important. I think we were leaning toward a favorite that not a lot of people liked. And now you hear that win bet. So he will be a decisive favorite. That's a lot of money, even though there will be millions upon millions in the pool for the Derby. That's still a significant amount. Hasn't looked that good. He's just hasn't. Spa City, who's coming to a $35,000 claimer near you later this summer, drugged him the other day. Now, Brad Cox has repeatedly said he's not a great workhorse, and Spa City is. Called Spa City a Morning Glory. But to me, and as I preface this, I'm not a workout guy. I'm not the guy that necessarily should be judging workouts, but you watch it, and I also can say your Kentucky Derby winner shouldn't be getting pulled away late and pulling up pretty abruptly in his gallop out. So he had, that's Essential Quality. And Brad almost kind of had to do a little PR and say, well, listen, that's kind of how he is. He's answered every bell. He's answered every test they asked. He's definitely the horse to beat. I personally can't get a grip on him. I'm against him. And now will be an even shorter price. Now, that doesn't mean anything in your horizontals. So don't forget that. Just because he might be 9 to 5 has nothing to do with your horizontals, your pick 4s and 5s. I don't know. Can he move forward off that bluegrass? They threw it down. It was a turf kind of race where they went so slow early and they picked it up late. Yes, he was pulling away from Highly Motivated late. Yes, he showed he can win dogfight. Yes, he's 1-for-1 at Churchill. I just think there's a lot of things going against him, and then you factor in the price. And he's like, did I pick him? I might have picked him 5th on the one sheet. I did. I picked him 5th on the one sheet, but he's not an A for me. I'm not going to have him as an A. Rock Your World, I think, as Mike alluded to. Who's done better than that Santa Anita Derby? Nobody. I mean, he went 46 flat for the half mile. Yes, it was speedy that day at Santa Anita. Yes, it was, people have said it was inside a little bit that day. Who cares? He absolutely bottomed out field. It was just a seminal performance. Can he run back? I don't know. Maybe he regresses a little bit. You look at the pedigree. By Candy Ride out of the Empire Maker mare. He's drawn perfectly out there. If they want the lead, they'll get it. If they want to sit off a possibly aggressive Midnight Bourbon, I would think that's pretty darn good too. Nobody's run fast like that, and it was awesome. And I think I can say this because I'm not a workout guy, as I've said many times. You watch his workout the other day at Santa Anita, you can see in mid-stretch, they just asked him a little bit, and he absolutely took off. And you can visually see that in the middle of the stretch. And he galloped out like a monster. And I just think at the end of the day, I'm wondering if his best race is just too good for this group that isn't filled with world beaters. So I agree with everything Mike said. I think Rock Your World is a major, major problem for the other 19.
All right, let me kick off 16 through 20. 16 is King Fury. I think the horse is interesting, was live as a 2-year-old, showed some talent there. And then Kenny McPeak said the other day that, maybe they just went a little too far in the 2-year-old season, and the owner said, hey, let's give them some time off. They did. They came back in the Lexington. I thought the comeback was really good looking. So King Fury got 20 points out of that. It wasn't 20 Kentucky Derby points. It wasn't enough to get him in, but in the winner's circle after the Lexington, Kenny said, love to go to the Derby. If we can get in there, I'll do it. If not, we'll go to the Preakness. Well, subsequently, there were enough dropouts that King Fury made it in, and he's interesting. Didn't use him in my mix, but I think he is interesting. Highly motivated out of the Ding Dong battle with Essential Quality in the Bluegrass. Again, it's another interesting horse I could make a case for. I just found others a little more interesting. Superstock's just a fun story. They come into the Kentucky Derby off a win in the Grade 1 $1 million Arkansas Derby, and it's Steve Asmussen for his dad, who is one of the part owners. And typically his father prepares young horses and sends them to auction. But because of the pandemic last year, the auction they had this horse planned for, the auction was canceled. So they not only wind up keeping the horse, Steve Asmussen's son rides the horse through the first 3 starts of the career and gets a stakes win because he's on break from college because of the pandemic. So it was a fun story. And again, they wind up just serendipitously keeping the horse that they would normally have sold, and they win a Grade 1 $1 million and head to the Kentucky Derby. I could make the case off of that race to play around with this horse. Again, don't have it in my mix, but I wouldn't argue strongly against if somebody wanted to play at a 30-1 morning line price. Soup and Sandwich. Mark Cassidy, runner, ran second in the Florida Derby behind Known Agenda. That was only the 3rd career start off a couple of wins to start the career. But again, historically, maybe a little lightly raced, but boy, this is a talented horse. And so again, at a long price, I wouldn't knock it. Bourbonic, I think, would be a little more of a stretch for me. The big come from behind win in the Wood Memorial at 72-1. Makes the horse, I suppose, playable, but leaves from the 20 post position, which, given his running style, you would think won't be an obstacle. The obstacle will be essentially the running style in the stretch, where he's got to make up all that ground with a field of 19 ahead of them. It's not going to be quite the same as what he accomplished versus 8 in the Wood Memorial. So for me, all 5 of those are kind of interesting and have some interesting stories. None of them made my mix, however. Brian, your thoughts on 16 through 20?
Well, I've said it a lot on Twitter. King Fury each and every day has looked really good. Really, really good. And he is a long shot that I will have everywhere in this Derby. I think he's lightly raced this year at least. Ran fast, winning a Lexington. Yes, it fell apart, but don't forget, it's not easy to win a short stretch dirt race at Keeneland from behind like he did. He's going to close. He's going to pass horses. He's going to be a big price. I was actually shocked he was 20. I thought maybe he'd be 30. Regardless, he's going to be a big price. And I think he can get a piece, guys. I think he can get a piece because I think he'll be running on when some of these are going to be straggling in the lane. So I like him in this Derby. Highly motivated. I just kind of think back to the Bluegrass. And if he couldn't beat Essential Quality walking on the lead going 9 furlongs in what is essentially a match race, how's he going to beat him and a lot of other top shooters going 1.25 miles from a post that could be a little problematic for him because he's going to have to be used a little bit and then try to secure position entering the first turn. So I'm against him. I'm not sold that he wants to go this far. Super stock, maybe like a mid-pack finish to me. I think he probably will run on, but that Arkansas Derby's tricky because, yes, Caddo River and Concert Tour went at it early and often, and they tired, but nobody else came from behind to pass them. So I think Superstock's getting a little beat up because of that, but there were others in there that could have did it, and they didn't. So I give him credit for that, but I don't really see him moving forward enough. The post is a real problem for Soup and Sandwich because of what he wants to do. But I do think he's fast enough and at least good enough for like 5 or 6 furlongs that he could be problematic for some of the other speed in the race. And Bourbonic's a cool story. You know, Kendrick Carmouche has really arrived, and he's done it the hard way. He's put all the miles in over the winter at Aqueduct and Park/Philadelphia Park. And I believe he's the first African-American since 2013 to ride in the Derby. So there's a lot of cool stories about it, and he's riding better than ever. He got a Grade 1 win in the Cigar Mile at Aqueduct last year, but tough to think Bourbonic's going to do what he did in the Wood Memorial. And that was a very, very weak race. The Kentucky Derby is a lot better, so I don't really see him in here.
Mike, your thoughts 16 through 20?
Yeah, King Fury, like Brian said, he's a big player, and my thoughts in the Kentucky Derby, like you said last time in the Lexington, yes, it was over the slop. He was coming off a little bit of a layoff. But like you said, you watch the workouts, he just has like a low, efficient stride to him. And I was actually listening to Ken McBee kind of talk about sort of the body of work he's had so far. He said last year, maybe I ran him one too many races, talking about the Kentucky Jockey Club race where he finished 5th that day. But he certainly made an improve from 2 to 3. And he was actually mentioning, Ken McPeak was mentioning his exercise rider and how well he was doing, his exercise rider. He's an eternal optimist. Said, he came back to the barn and said, we can't lose this race. So I think he's a live long shot here at 20 to 1. And like you said, the more speed, the better in here for King Fury. I think he'll be coming from the back in this spot. Highly motivated, like everybody said. Last time out, he set, a fairly easy pace. Wasn't able to, distant question mark. And even take a look at the Gotham, where he was supposed to win that race. Yes, he got pinched out of the chute, but still had no run in him at all. I think he's going to be a little bit over bet in here. Yes, Chad Brown, Klarovich in this spot, but for me, I just wanted to look elsewhere. Super stock, like you said, fun story last time out when Concert Tour and Caddo River stopped. He was the horse that was able to kick clear in the lane. He still has to improve in here. It's going to be a big number at 30 to 1. Soup and Sandwich, like you said, going to show some speed. We'll see how far ultimately he wants to go. And then Bourbonic, the Stone Cold closer last time, at a big number in the Wood Memorial. I didn't have him on my ticket, but he's a fun story and another one that's going to be a big price in here.
All right, it's time. Let's give our picks. Kentucky Derby 2021. Brian, how do you see it?
I have it 9-15-16. Hot Rod Charlie over Rock Your World over King Fury. Mandaloon in 4th. Essential Quality in 5th. I like the versatility of Hot Rod Charlie. I think he'll be just off the pace, get first run. He looks tremendous to me. He just looks like a beast, so I'll put him on top. I do think Rock Your World. I hope they send Rock Your World. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I just, maybe at the end of the day, he's just a better, faster horse than the rest of these. You could run them off their feet. I like the Californians. Now, Hot Rod Charlie isn't necessarily a Californian. He's been, obviously he won the Louisiana Derby, but he's out there in California. And he shipped. I think that's important too. He's shown he can ship. So those are 2 on top. And then to me, after those 2, the gap is a pretty seismic one for me. King Fury in 3rd at a big number. I do still think Mandaloon's best race gives him hope in here. I just don't know if we can see it off that Louisiana Derby. And then Essential Quality, he's a B. He's not an A to me. I'm comfortable making him prove it, and I think it would be pretty cool if he does. Brad Cox would be the first Louisville native to win the Kentucky Derby. That seems absolutely impossible when I heard that the other day, but that's a fact. So.
Very good. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have it 15, 16, 14, 7, and 9. Like Brian said, I'm really high on Rock Your World. Last time out, the dirt debut. Brian had mentioned the pedigree. He's bred to run far. John Sadler's been on many times saying he's got a high cruising speed and he's able to go these classic distances. I think he's faster than everybody in here, and I think they're going to show it. There is the possibility, but it's a possibility with everybody. He breaks a step slow, and now it's plan B. But for me, if he runs his best race may be better than everybody else. So I have him on top. King Fury in the 2nd spot, looking for a little bit of a price for all the reasons that we just touched upon when we were talking about that subset of horses. I think he's quite interesting. Likes Churchill as well, 2 for 3 as far as wins. Essential Quality in the 3rd spot. Whether you like him at the price or not, he's going to sit a good trip in here. He's a horse that likes to just rate off of the speed. If for some reason, Rock Your World isn't as good as I think he is, and the speed comes back, he's going to be the horse to get the first jump on him. Whether you like him at the price or not, he's going to be in the mix. So I have him in the 3rd spot, and then Mandaloon in the 4th spot. Again, when you look past that Louisiana Derby, his workouts have been sensational. He's a big, strong horse. Not sure if he wants the 1.25 miles, but we'll see on Saturday. He's one to use. And then Hot Rod Charlie in the 5th spot. So 15, 16, 14, 7, and 9.
And I went 7, 14, 15, 10, and the 1 down at the bottom. But I put Mandaloon on top. As I said earlier, I'm just going to hope to draw a line through the Louisiana Derby. And have that be a legitimate thought, because it seemed like prior to that, he was just really moving in the right direction and primed, and I'm hoping the good workouts he's had leading up to the Derby signal that maybe he's ready to rebound to that situation. Essential quality, the champ, undefeated, couldn't leave him out of the mix. I mean, a lot of people are being skeptical coming into this off the workouts and the ding-dong battle and the bluegrass, but again, he's just been the most consistent of an otherwise fairly inconsistent bunch. Now, that said, Rock Your World has also been consistent, but with only 3 starts, 2 of them on the turf. So there's still question marks, but I had to put him down at the bottom of the mix in the 3rd spot. Again, off of that Santa Anita Derby victory, which was very impressive. 4th spot, I went to number 10, Midnight Bourbon, off the good performances down at the fairgrounds for Steve Asmussen. Known Agenda, I thought the Florida Derby was pretty good. So again, 7, 14, 15, 10, and 1 for me. But I will say, as you heard me talk, I talked about a lot of horses. Boy, I'd like to have him in the mix. I'd like to have him in the mix. Mike and I were talking before we went on the air, and I said a little while ago, I pulled up the future pool, the all others and who were in the pools, and compared them to the field, because I hadn't yet done that. And I played all others in future pool 3 and in future pool 4. I'm going to have 13 in the gate on my 2 all other plays, which will give me a little leeway to play around, because some of those horses I said, I'd like to put that one in the mix. I'd like to put, they're part of that all others. So I was able to make the most of that wager. And as I say, that'll give me a little leeway to play around on Saturday, and we'll see how that works out. So, Brian, any last thoughts?
No, I think it's a great betting race, Seth. I really do. I mean, that would be it. I mean, it's a great day, but I think it's a Derby where, in years past, especially since they changed the point system now to a point system, in years past, favorites have ruled. It might play out this year, but there's no doubt about that. But I do think it's a Derby where if, the 27-1, whoever that might be that you like, is not that far removed from whoever you might think the horse to be. And we know the buyers are not an end-all be-all, but just to use that as a point of reference, you've got your Rock Your World and Essential Qualities with 197, and then here's King Fury with a 96, and things like that. The discrepancy is not that big, and that means you're allowed to take a shot. So the other thing I would say too is I would not want to use about 14 horses in 3rd and cut out about 6 of them. I recommend the all ball.
Are you a Oaks Derby player? You got an Oaks Derby double in mind?
I have Travel Column in Clairiere into Mandaloun, so I don't really need to play that bet. If I was, I will say this. I'm glad you brought that up, Seth. I think that's the best bet maybe all year, let alone the weekend, because by midday on Friday, you're pretty much going to know your odds for the Kentucky Derby. So I always tell the story when I liked Any Given Saturday, and I thought he should have been like 25, and he was like 14-1. Well, Rags to Riches was going to win the Oaks that year. We pretty much all knew it. I think she paid $5. I was able to get a double into Any Given Saturday that was like $79. So I turned 14-1 into 39-1. Now, I didn't get anything when he ran like 9th, but you know my point. You can look at those will pays. I would highly recommend doing that, because I think Mandaloun's going to be a buzz horse, Seth. I think sadly you're going to get about 11 to 12-1. To me, he should be twice that price. So that's how you can look at this bet and say, oh, I love this horse, but oh no, he's 14-1. I needed more than that. You can get more than that in those double will pays. So check that out. The Oaks is wide open too. I like Travel Column, but anybody could really win the Oaks. So if somebody, I'd probably do a double wheel into Hot Rod Charlie for a couple bucks a piece.
Very good. Mike, any last thoughts? And you want to hit on some of the promos coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, we were talking Oaks Derby double. I'll go 2x2. I'll go Travel Column, Malthot, and then I'll go Rock Your World and King Fury to kind of bomb it out. But like you said, with this, there's so many special bets to go along with it. You have the Oaks Derby double, which is always the highlight, but you have the special pick 3 with the Oaks, the Turf Classic, and if you can get past Colonel Liam, then it's going to blow it up. And then if you can get past essential quality in that pick 3, that may be a play you want to make. There's a special pick 6 that you can play as well. So there's a lot of betting options. It's just going to be a great day. Like Brian said, the weather looks great on both days. So it's just going to be a tremendous day. And like you said, here at Capital OTB with things that are going on, especially on Kentucky Derby Day, I do want to note the early times. You're going to have the Clubhouse Racebook opening up at 9:30 on Friday, with post on Friday being 10:30 at Churchill, and then on Saturday, going to open up at 9 on Saturday here at the Clubhouse Racebook, and then first post again is 10:30. All other branches will open up at 10 a.m. on Friday and Saturday, so note that. And then promotion-wise, obviously signing up for an account if you're watching the seminar right now, we do have a bonus going on where you can deposit $200, wager $400, and get $200 back. It's as simple as that. There's no stipulation to it, so sign up for an account. And then on Derby Day, we have a couple promos here at the Clubhouse Racebook where we have the first 100 patrons to walk through the door. They'll get a commemorative Kentucky Derby glass, and then also the first 100 ladies to walk through the door will get a single rose on the Run for the Roses. So.
Very good. Run for the Roses, it all comes together.
Yeah,
yeah, very good. Again, 2 really nice days of racing, highlighted by the Oaks and the Derby, but great undercard stakes as well. We hit on some of those on Derby Day. So, as always, Brian, have a great time down there. Enjoy Louisville and Oaks and Derby Day. We appreciate your jumping on this evening. Mike, good luck to you as well. Good luck to all of you. We appreciate you tuning in to the Kentucky Derby Seminar, the annual Capital OTB Kentucky Derby Seminar. Good luck. We'll see you again.